Following up from the last video about AJ and Prenga, I've watched the fight a few more times. I've had a day to digest it. I've seen a few other people's takes, and I've had time to really think about that whole fixing thing. Before we get into it, do me a big favor and hit the subscribe button there, especially if you're returning to my channel. You're watching my videos again and you haven't hit subscribe, just do it. It'll help me out, and you clearly like the content because you're coming back. So hit subscribe because it'll help you out as well. When we think about fighting and boxing and any sort of discipline, we think of a few things. We think of the skill set, we think of how powerful someone is, and we think of how fit someone is. These are the three elements that you need to be a good fighter. You need to be fast and strong, be fit and healthy, and you need to have a good skill set. And for each fighter, something outweighs something else, right? And the best fighters have all three. They have the ability to output a lot of power, they have a good skill set, and they have a good engine so they can last through the fight, right? The fourth thing they need is toughness. You have to be able to take contact. You will meet adversity, and adversity in a ring or any sort of fight full stop requires an element of toughness. And again, like the other three elements, some people have more than others. But then there's something else that most of us fail to consider. And I think anyone who hasn't stepped in the ring or any sort of combat sport or haven't had a fight, don't have a fight outside of a controlled environment if you can help it. But anyone who hasn't had a competitive fight, now there's people who go and train who won't understand this unless they've taken that training and decided to test themselves in a competitive environment. Now I'd be lying if I said I've fought at any sort of high level, but since the age of 8 all the way to the age of 25, I've competed in combat sports all that time. Now, regardless of the level you get to, I never got to any sort of high level. I got to an okay level. I would consider myself an okay martial artist at best. But what you do get in those fights is a dump of adrenaline. And that's the thing that people don't talk about. So I've hijacked a guy called Henry. I hope you don't mind, mate. I really like his stuff. He's someone I follow. I like his boxing breakdowns. So I watched his video. He basically reminded me of this point that in round 2, there was more than just gassing because Prenga outputted a lot in the first round. There was much more to it than that. You got the adrenaline dump, you got the occasion, and maybe you've got the fact that he felt AJ's power. I'm not saying AJ caught him clean until the very end. I'm just saying he might have felt his power and made him think twice. So let's just have a little look at what Henry has to say here.
I'm not going to dismiss those ideas entirely because ultimately I've got no idea, but I'd be very surprised. I just think what happened was AJ came out, he landed some big shots on Prenga, and Prenga became a little bit more reserved. And when I watched that Deweyko fight, started quickly at the beginning of, I think it was round 3, and within about 15 seconds, he'd gassed and he couldn't persist with that pace anymore. Not that he'd thrown loads of punches, but also just the weight of the occasion, the excitement. He may have had an adrenaline dump, which meant he just couldn't move around the ring anymore. Basically, what I'm saying is I think there's far more plausible explanations, or likely explanations, I should say, than match fixing.
So there it is there. So although he's not completely and utterly ruling out match fixing, because I think we all know there's corruption in all big organizations and boxing shouldn't be exempt from that type of skepticism. However, there are more valid explanations as to why round 2 was way different than round 1 from Prenga and Joshua's perspective, to be honest. But it might give us an explanation as to why Prenga wasn't throwing any punches in round 2 or minimal punches in round 2. Maybe he had that big adrenaline dump. Maybe he felt Joshua's power. You know, I've seen this actually a few times in boxing. Quite often when people fight Canelo, they're kind of boxing quite well and they're moving against him. They do quite well against him. And all of a sudden he gives them a taste of his power. And then all of a sudden the fight changes. And he hadn't necessarily caught them flush, but they felt it. They felt it enough to go, okay, it's deterred them, basically. It's deterred them from freely throwing the punches they might have been throwing before they felt that power. So that might be a strong explanation. I like the way Henry breaks it down there because it gives you a real perspective of what it's like for fighters in a boxing ring. And talking about AJ, another thing I picked up on my last video, check it out, it's in the description just there. And I've also linked Henry's video in the description just there because he's worth a watch. He also always does great breakdowns when it comes to boxing. I don't know the lad personally, I just really like his stuff. So go and check him out if you haven't already. Another thing I brought up was AJ's guard. His guard is always low, especially that front hand. And Henry breaks it down here. So I'm just gonna click play here so you can see what he says and we can go through that straight after.
Technical weakness in Anthony Joshua where he gallops around the ring, he uses the full size of the ring to move his legs, but he does it with a low lead hand. Now look, this wasn't exactly the same because he was coming off of a jab and Prenga just fired his own shot and he caught him clean on the chin. Clearly hurt AJ, and in that instance he didn't go down, although again he was very much relying on the ropes.
So there you have it right there. So you can see that he is trying to use the ring. So obviously some of the stuff that he's doing with Usyk, he's trying to implement. I don't think he does it very often. I think he's still very linear forward back rather than left, right, and moving laterally off a punch. But as he roams around the ring, his arm drops, and you can see he got caught a couple of times. That one where he took the right hand there and then ended up on the ropes, that could potentially have been an 8 count. The ropes kind of came to his rescue on that occasion. But he drops that hand a lot. He did it in this fight. He got punished almost in this fight for it. Now, when he fights someone of higher quality, will that come back to bite him? That is something that he needs to sort out. Otherwise, this is probably the ceiling for Joshua now. He's 36. He had that horrendous accident where he lost 2 of his mates, sadly, 8 months ago. So he's done amazingly well to get back in the ring. But is this his lot? Or is it just going to be, we'll fight Tyson Fury, one last hurrah, and then we're on our way? Personally, I sincerely hope he can iron out these mistakes and come back strong and give us a mega fight against Tyson Fury. If you're enjoying my videos and you like what I said here today, please give this video a like. If you disagree with anything, or if you just want to make a comment, hit me up in the comments and let me know. And don't forget to subscribe.